Welcome back to Beneath the Surface, the dark side of crime. In this gripping episode, we unravel the shocking death of a famous celebrity. Was it a tragic accident, or was something far more sinister at play? This explosive story will take you through deceit, hidden motives, and shocking twists, leaving you questioning what truly happened. So, buckle up for a ride that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Chapter 1: The Glitz and Glamour of Celebrity Life. Lena Montgomery had spent her life perfecting an image, a glamorous, captivating actress adored by millions. But what the public saw was a carefully crafted persona. Behind the flawless smile and the shimmering red carpet moments, Lena was a woman constantly battling the pressures of fame. Born in a small town in Ohio, Lena had always dreamed of escaping her mundane beginnings. The first taste of the bright lights came when she was discovered at the age of 19, a beautiful girl with big dreams and an even bigger drive. Her rise to stardom was swift and meteoric. One film led to another, and soon Lena found herself on every screen, in every magazine, on every most beautiful list. But fame came with its price. The constant scrutiny and the mounting expectations took their toll. At night, when the cameras were off and the makeup had been wiped away, Lena struggled with overwhelming feelings of inadequacy. She was unable to sleep, her mind racing with thoughts of how she was perceived by the world. Her marriage to Ryan West had been the epitome of Hollywood romance in the eyes of the public. Together, they were unstoppable. Both were stars in their own right, adored by fans and pursued by paparazzi. But behind closed doors, their marriage was toxic. Ryan was a charming, good-looking actor with a wild side, often indulging in the lavish lifestyle they could afford. The jealousy, the constant attention from other women, the nights of raging arguments, it all began to take a toll. Ryan couldn't handle Lena's fame, and Lena couldn't handle Ryan's inability to trust her. Their love story turned into a public spectacle, and when the marriage finally crumbled, the press had a field day. Lena had tried to move on, but her relationships never quite measured up to the fairy tale romance everyone had once expected. She sought solace in Harvey Jacobs, her longtime manager, who had once been a mentor to her. But as time passed, Harvey's protective nature began to feel more like control. He began influencing her decisions more than she realized. It was Harvey who had pushed her into roles that she didn't want, pressured her to sign contracts that weren't in her best interest, and, most importantly, manipulated her into trusting him above anyone else. Then came Lucas Palmer, the young actor with a dazzling future ahead of him. He appeared to be the antidote to Lena's emotional scars. He was charming, attentive, and young. Everything Ryan wasn't. But was his affection for her real? Or was Lucas simply another opportunist looking to use Lena as a stepping stone for his own fame? Lena's insecurities made it difficult for her to see the truth. She wanted to believe that someone could love her for who she was and not what she could offer. Chapter 2: The Night of the Tragedy. The evening of Lena's death was supposed to be a celebration, a high-profile gathering to promote her latest film. The estate was transformed into a dazzling paradise of soft lights and expensive decorations. Celebrities mingled under the stars, champagne flowed freely, and the music played softly in the background. But beneath the opulent atmosphere, Lena felt a growing sense of dread, as if something was about to go terribly wrong. Harvey had worked hard to make the event a success, but his constant hovering over Lena was becoming more noticeable. Ryan had also shown up uninvited, his anger simmering beneath his polished exterior. Lena, ever the professional, pretended to ignore him, but the tension was palpable. The couple's bitter history was still fresh in both of their minds, and that night it seemed that both were unable to fully shake it off. Lucas, who had been by Lena's side for the past few months, spent most of the night in a quiet corner of the party, sipping a drink and speaking with other guests. But Lena had noticed the coldness in his eyes, something that didn't match the sweet words he had often spoken to her. For a moment, she wondered if he was truly who he appeared to be. Lena's discomfort grew, and after a few drinks she slipped away from the crowd. She needed a moment of peace, some quiet away from the ever-watchful eyes of Hollywood. The poolside, where the party lights reflected off the water, seemed like the perfect escape. Harvey noticed her retreat and followed her to the pool. He had been increasingly anxious about Lena's erratic behavior. He had tried to control every aspect of her life, but as her moods became more unpredictable, so did his worry. Lena stood by the edge of the pool, her eyes distant. She leaned against the cool stone of the poolside, lost in thought. Harvey's voice broke through her silence, but she barely acknowledged him. He approached, his face tight with frustration. As the argument between Lena and Harvey escalated, Lena's emotional distress was evident. She felt trapped by the very people who were supposed to love and protect her. She told Harvey she needed a break from everything, a break from the industry that had defined her life for so long. Suddenly, without warning, Lena stumbled backward and fell into the pool, her arms flailing as she struggled to regain her footing. The laughter from the party seemed distant as she sank beneath the surface. The chaos that followed was immediate. Guests rushed to the pool's edge, but it was Lucas who dove in to pull her out. By the time they reached her, it was already too late. Chapter 3. The Suspects. The moment Lena's body was pulled from the pool, the reality of the situation hit. Was it an accident? Or was something far darker at play? Detective Samantha Fields was called to the scene, and as she arrived, she immediately began to observe the scene with the keen eye of an investigator. The Hollywood lights, the glamorous surroundings, the champagne glasses, everything seemed so staged. There were too many things that didn't add up. Harvey Jacobs was beside himself, claiming that he had been talking to Lena right before the incident. He was visibly shaken, but there was something about his reaction that felt rehearsed. Ryan West, meanwhile, was less emotional. He claimed he had been on his way out of the party when Lena fell, but Samantha noticed that his story didn't quite match up. And then there was Lucas, who seemed overly calm in the face of tragedy. His quick departure from the scene immediately after pulling Lena from the pool raised questions. The more Samantha observed, the more she felt that everyone had something to hide. Each person had a different story, but they all seemed to be avoiding the key questions. Was Lena's death truly a tragic accident, or was it carefully orchestrated? And if it was murder, who stood to gain the most from her death? Chapter 4. A Web of Lies. As the investigation continued, Detective Fields delved deeper into each suspect's past. Harvey Jacobs had been Lena's manager for years, but it was clear that their relationship was no longer purely professional. Harvey had managed her career and helped her build an empire, but he had also manipulated her decisions. His controlling nature had slowly pushed Lena into a corner, and with her recent behavior spiraling out of control, Harvey had a lot to lose. If Lena's erratic behavior continued, he would be left with nothing. Meanwhile, Ryan West, Lena's ex-husband, had been seen arguing with her just days before her death. Their volatile relationship had been well documented in the tabloids. Ryan had always struggled with feelings of inadequacy compared to Lena's fame. He had been jealous of her success, and though they had divorced, he couldn't let go. Was it possible that Ryan had been consumed by jealousy and bitterness, leading him to act out of rage? Could he have killed Lena in a fit of passion, finally unable to control his emotions? Lucas Palmer, the young actor, was the final piece of the puzzle. On the surface, he appeared to be the loving boyfriend, the one who cared for Lena deeply. But as Fields dug deeper into his past, she discovered that Lucas had financial problems of his own. The possibility that Lena's wealth and her estate could be his if something were to happen to her was an enticing proposition. Could Lucas have orchestrated Lena's death for his own gain? Was his affection for her simply a means to an end? The more Detective Fields uncovered, the more it seemed that Lena's death was not an accident. Each of the suspects had their own motive, but who had crossed the line from jealousy, greed, or desperation to murder? Chapter 5. The investigation deepens. The investigation into Lena's death quickly gained public attention. Every detail was scrutinized by the media, and every twist in the case made headlines. But behind the scenes, Detective Fields continued to piece together the evidence. Forensic analysis revealed that Lena had been drugged before falling into the pool. Traces of an unknown sedative were found in her system, confirming that she had been incapacitated before her death. The autopsy also revealed signs of a struggle: bruises on Lena's arms, scratches on her face. This wasn't an accidental fall. It was an orchestrated attack. Whoever had killed Lena had planned it carefully. The next breakthrough came when Fields analyzed the phone records. Lena had been in constant communication with Harvey in the days leading up to her death. Their conversations had been frantic, filled with anxiety. Harvey's financial troubles were no secret. He had been relying heavily on Lena's income to keep his business afloat. If Lena's behavior became more erratic, her contract might be terminated. Harvey had been desperate to prevent that. The evidence was mounting against him, but there was still no concrete proof that Harvey had been the one to kill Lena. Chapter 6. The motive revealed. As Detective Fields continued her investigation, the motives became clearer. Harvey had everything to lose. His career, his wealth, and his power were all tied to Lena. She was his meal ticket, and if she had lost her star power, Harvey would be left with nothing. The pressure had been building for months, and Lena's sudden breakdown may have been the final straw. Ryan West, on the other hand, was consumed by jealousy. He couldn't stand the thought of Lena moving on, of her dating another man while he remained stuck in the past. The bitterness from their marriage had never faded. He had convinced himself that Lena was still his, even though she had repeatedly rejected him. Could he have killed her in a moment of rage, unable to cope with the thought of losing her forever? And Lucas, desperate to further his own career, was in deep financial trouble. Lena's death would have catapulted him to stardom, leaving him with not just her fortune, but her legacy. Was his love for her real, or was it just an illusion, a way for him to climb the ladder of success? Chapter 7. Secrets from the Past. Fields uncovered more about Lena's past. She learned of a deep secret that had haunted the actress for years. Before she was famous, Lena had been involved in a hit-and-run accident that had left a young woman seriously injured. The incident had been covered up by her management, and the victim had disappeared into obscurity. But as Fields dug deeper into this woman's identity, she discovered that she was alive, living under a different name, and had recently surfaced in Los Angeles. Could this woman have been seeking revenge for the accident that destroyed her life? Had she come back to claim justice? Or was she simply another player in the complex web of lies surrounding Lena's death? Chapter 8. Betrayal and Lies. As Detective Fields delved deeper into the lives of Lena's closest friends and confidants, the most shocking revelation came when the true extent of betrayal emerged. It wasn't just one person who had betrayed Lena. It was a collective effort, with everyone around her weaving a complex web of lies. Every person who had once claimed to care for Lena had manipulated her in some way, using her as a pawn in their own selfish games. But who was the mastermind? Harvey had always been the trusted manager, but it was clear now that his need to control Lena's career had been driven by far more than just professional ambition. Harvey's financial troubles had been escalating. He had managed to keep it hidden from the public, but as the stress mounted, he knew that Lena's unpredictable behavior could threaten everything he had worked for. Lena was no longer the picture-perfect star. Her mental health was deteriorating, and Harvey feared that if the truth came out, he would lose not just his career, but also his wealth. Ryan, too, had his own plans. After their tumultuous divorce, he had been left with a fraction of what he felt was his rightful share. His resentment towards Lena had never waned. He believed that she owed him, that he was entitled to her fame and wealth. But it wasn't just money that drove him. It was the idea of control, of being able to dictate Lena's life even after their marriage had ended. He couldn't bear the thought of her moving on without him. Her new relationship with Lucas only fueled his jealousy. He didn't just want her back. He wanted her to be his in every way, forever. Lucas Palmer, the young actor who had charmed his way into Lena's life, had a secret of his own. While he presented himself as the caring boyfriend, beneath the surface, he was driven by an insatiable hunger for fame and success. He had always struggled with the idea that he would never be able to reach the heights of Lena's success. Her death would catapult him into the spotlight, and he knew it. Lena's legacy, her fortune, and her fame would be his. The fact that he had begun to emotionally distance himself from her only added to the suspicion surrounding him. Could Lucas have seen her death as a way to further his own career? Fields now saw the full picture. Lena's life had been marred by betrayal at every turn. Each suspect had their own reasons for wanting Lena gone, but it seemed that all of them were willing to turn on her when their interests were at stake. But there was something more. Detective Fields knew that the killer had been someone who knew Lena intimately, someone who had observed her every weakness and taken advantage of it. Lena's erratic behavior had provided the perfect cover for murder. The killer had seized upon her vulnerability, using it to execute their plans. Chapter 9. The Confrontation. With all the pieces of the puzzle in place, Detective Fields prepared for the confrontation. She had spent weeks meticulously collecting evidence: phone records, financial documents, witness testimonies, and forensic analysis. Every detail pointed to one inevitable conclusion: someone close to Lena had murdered her. In a tense meeting at the police station, Detective Fields called all three suspects into the same room: Harvey, Ryan, and Lucas. The tension in the air was palpable. Harvey sat rigidly in his chair, his face pale and tight, while Ryan fidgeted uncomfortably. Lucas, usually so charming, now looked uneasy, shifting his gaze between the others. "One of you is responsible for Lena's death," Fields began, her voice cold and steady. "And I have the proof." The silence was thick as each person tried to maintain their composure. Harvey's eyes darted to the others, trying to gauge their reactions. Ryan, ever the narcissist, believed that he could talk his way out of anything. Lucas, on the other hand, seemed too composed, too confident. It was almost as if he were waiting for the inevitable truth to surface, knowing that it would clear him of suspicion. Fields laid out the evidence, starting with Harvey. The phone records showed numerous calls made to Lena in the days leading up to her death. Financial records revealed that Harvey's business was in trouble, and Lena's sudden behavior was putting everything at risk. The autopsy had confirmed the presence of a sedative in Lena's system, and that was where Harvey's involvement came into play. Harvey's face tightened and his jaw clenched. He knew the game was up. Fields pressed on, revealing that Lucas had a financial motive as well. His debts, his rising career, and his relationship with Lena all pointed to a man who might have seen her death as an opportunity. Ryan's jealousy and rage had been well documented, and his obsession with Lena had never truly dissipated. Ryan's face twisted in anger as Fields presented the evidence. He slammed his fist on the table. "You don't understand," he shouted. "She was mine, and you took her from me. You all took her from me." Lucas sat back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "I didn't kill her," he said, his voice soft but firm. "But I didn't exactly love her like you all think. She was just a stepping stone for me. I wasn't going to let anyone stand in my way." Harvey, at this point, could no longer contain his guilt. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," he whispered, his voice cracking. "She was slipping away, and I thought if I could just control her career, maybe she would get back on track. But when she started rejecting me, I couldn't lose everything." With Harvey's confession, the truth was finally laid bare. Lena had been the victim of a complex conspiracy, one rooted in greed, jealousy, and betrayal. Harvey had orchestrated the murder, using Lucas as an unwitting accomplice to drug Lena and stage her death as an accident. Ryan's rage had only fueled the fire, and in the end, it was the collective betrayal of the people Lena trusted that led to her tragic demise. Chapter 10. The Shocking Truth. In the aftermath of the confession, the media frenzy reached a fever pitch. Harvey Jacobs was arrested for first-degree murder, while Lucas Palmer faced charges of conspiracy to commit manslaughter. Ryan West, though emotionally disturbed and a key part of the toxic environment surrounding Lena, was not directly involved in her death and was released from custody. Lena's family and friends were left to process the shocking betrayal from those she had trusted most. The public was stunned by the revelation that such a star could fall victim to the very people who had once supported her. It was a stark reminder that fame, while glamorous on the outside, often hid dark secrets and hidden agendas behind the scenes. As the court proceedings began, it became clear that the damage had already been done. Lena's legacy, though marred by the tragedy of her death, was ultimately one that would inspire others to be wary of the dangers of trust and fame. The media attention and the public's fascination with the case kept her name in the headlines, but those who truly knew her understood that her life had been one of personal struggle and pain. Lena Montgomery's death, as shocking as it was, served as a painful reminder of the dangers lurking in the shadows of fame. The lesson learned was clear. Trust is fragile, and even the closest of relationships can be poisoned by jealousy, greed, and control. In Hollywood, the lines between truth and illusion blur, and the price of fame is often higher than anyone can imagine. The individuals responsible for Lena's death, Harvey, Lucas, and Ryan, each played their part in a tragedy that might have been avoided had they acted differently. Lena's story, however, is not just one of victimhood, but also one of profound betrayal. The true lesson here is that fame should never come at the cost of integrity, and those who rise to the top must always be cautious about the people they allow into their lives. The shocking truth about Lena's death didn't just expose the dark side of the entertainment industry. It exposed the human flaws that drive people to extreme measures for power, control, and wealth. In the end, Lena's story serves as a cautionary tale for anyone caught in the grip of ambition and greed, urging them to remember the importance of trust and the price it can demand.